Hi, everyone.
Welcome, welcome. We'll give everyone a second to get settled. Grab a glass of water, wine, beer. It's almost 5.
Food.
Food, sure.
TGIF, as they say.
Seriously. Hi, everyone. While you're getting settled, take just a moment to take in the tips and tricks that are up on the screen. Hopefully it'll make your Zoom experience a little bit smoother. We'll just take a minute to make sure everyone's settled, and then we'll let you know what to expect. Happy Friday.
Yes, welcome.
All right, so I'll just give you guys a couple of logistics. I'm Claire, I'm Atlantic's Director of Marketing. And you guys should get yourselves comfortable. We're gonna be together for about an hour. Before we start, just to let you guys know, we're gonna be playing 2 clips today. Playing said clips obviously relies on the internet. Hopefully everything will be smooth. If for any reason we encounter any technical glitches along the way, fear not, we will do our best to fix promptly and swiftly and get you guys out by about 5 p.m. Eastern time. If you guys have any questions along the way that you'd like to ask any of our panelists about the clips, about the production, feel free to use the Q&A. That's a button at the very bottom of your screen. The chat is going to be disabled, so you can use the Q&A and then we'll be able to sort accordingly. And what we'll do is we'll collect them throughout the hour, and then we will refer back to the questions towards the end of our hour together. And lastly, thank you so much for being along for this ride. We're just really happy to be sharing this time with you. So Neil, I'll let you take it from here.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Neil Pepe. I'm the Artistic Director of the Atlantic Theater Company, and we are thrilled to have you with us today on another installment of our Virtual Fridays in this new reality that we're all living under. We hope you all are safe and healthy. This afternoon, this wonderful Friday, we're really thrilled for our Creators Cut series to have 3 amazing artists who are old friends of ours, and they are going to be talking about, well, I'll just say who they are. Rajiv Joseph, the wonderful, wonderful playwright whose play Guards at the Taj we produced, as well as his play Describe the Night. And as many of you know, he's written many, many other extraordinary plays. And he's one of our great playwrights, and we have just been so honored to have worked with him. And joining him are the 2 stars of Guards at the Taj, Omar Metwally and Arian Moayed. And we're just thrilled to have them. So before I hand it over to Annie McCrae, our Associate Artistic Director, who's going to moderate this afternoon, I just again wanted to say thank you to them for being part of this, and thank you all for joining this. If you enjoyed it, of course, because we're living in these lean times, and we're trying to do all this free programming to offer up great things from the Atlantic, but if you enjoyed it enough and you wanted to make a small donation, I think there's a contribute button somewhere that you can find, or Claire will tell you, or somebody will tell you how to find that. We'd love any contributions that you can make if you felt so inclined. In the meantime, I'm very, very pleased to introduce Annie McCrae, my colleague at the Atlantic, to get us into the festivities. Hi, Annie.
Hi, Neil. Thanks. So gentlemen, will you start your video so you can join us in this Zoom room? We're so excited to have Arian and Rajiv and Omar. Omar's coming on in. Okay, awesome. So we love these gentlemen so much and are excited to chat with them and watch these 2 clips. So before we get started, we're curious to know how many of our audience saw our 2015 production of Guards at the Taj. So we're gonna put a little poll up now. Ooh. Very exciting. I think I can even take this poll. I'm excited.
I'm gonna take the poll too.
Yeah, so I don't know. The 3 of you should definitely, you know, check that, and then we'll see the results.
Host and panelists can't vote.
Yeah.
I know, I just read that as I was, yeah.
Oh.
Okay, okay. So we'll see that poll, the results of that come on in for a minute. Great. Awesome. So a lot of people saw the production. That's great. Wow, awesome. That is excellent. Very cool feature. Okay, so we are going to show our first clip, which is the end of the first scene of the play. So Rajiv, could you tee us up a little bit for what we're about to watch?
Yeah. This play takes place in the 1600s, 1648 in Agra, India. In the moments before the Taj Mahal is to be revealed to the public for the very first time. It was, the legend has it that it was built within this enormous scaffolding so that except for the artisans and laborers who worked on it, no one else saw it in the 13 or 14 years that it took to build it. And Arian and Omar are playing these roles of Babur and Humayun, lifelong friends who are imperial guards, standing guard, and at dawn, right before the sun comes up, and are talking about this building that was about to be revealed. And I think it's mentioned earlier that they're among the lowliest imperial guards in the kingdom. So they are just scrubs that are trying to make their names known. And as they're talking and hearing the kind of birds come out of their sleep and chirping and singing, the sun starts to come up and they're tempted by what's behind them, which is the Taj Mahal.
Amazing, perfect. So Claire, could you share this clip with us and we'll disappear and return shortly.
Think about it. The most beautiful thing ever made. Taj Mahal is sitting there, waiting to be lit by the day's first light, waiting to be seen.
We are not turning around.
Oh, come on, man.
No. We are guarding. We are facing south, not north, south.
Just for a quick moment. We turn around, we turn back around.
Absolutely not. Imperial guards do not move from their posts.
They don't speak either, but here we
We are
are.
not turning around. We are Imperial guards. This is very important to me.
To me as well.
People are watching us.
Who?
Elders? Waiting for us to deviate from the sacred oaths. You and me, Babur, there is no one below us. If there is a post that nobody wants, for example, the one single guard post that faces away from Taj Mahal at dawn, then we are assigned that post. We are grunts of the Imperial force until that day new appointments are made. And until that day, we get the jobs nobody else wants. Unless, of course, we are sacked for being stupid because we turned around at first light to see a white building. They'd send us to the brink. We'd end up patrolling Kashmir, a place to which if some bastard is assigned, some bastard ends up dead. Do you want to go patrol Kashmir?
No.
Do you want 40 lashes and a shaved head?
No.
Do you want to be blinded by a dull blade? Or sewn into the hide of a water buffalo?
No.
Or maybe you want to end up like poor Ustad Isa and have your...
Wait, what?
Nothing.
No, what were you just saying?
Nothing. Forget it.
No, what about Ustad Isa?
Nothing.
Come on, what?
Nothing.
Humayun.
Nope.
Huma?
Nope.
Tell me.
Nope.
What have you heard?
It's simple. Don't be careless.
Come on, tell me.
Okay, but you can't tell anyone.
I promise. Who keeps a promise better than me?
Okay. It has been said that after the last jewels were inlaid and the last piece of marble polished, it has been said that this wastrel, this cur, Ustad Isa, the proud architect who thinks himself equal to a king, approached Shah Jahan himself and asked his excellent Mughal lineage for a personal favor.
A personal favor?
Yes.
He asked the emperor for a personal favor?
I don't even know which level of sedition that is, because it's never been classified, because nobody's ever done it. This is the kind of useless vagabond your brilliant artist is. He asks Shah Jahan, great-great-grandson of Babur, first Mughal emperor.
My namesake?
Your namesake. Ustad Isa asks Shah Jahan for things such as these. Personal things.
My God.
Yes.
What was it?
What was what?
The personal favor.
Ustad Isa asked Shah Jahan if the 20,000 men who built it could wander the unsheathed Taj Mahal at first light so that they could see and admire their handiwork, this thing to which they owe the last 16 years of their lives.
Oh. Huh. What did Shah Jahan reply?
Supreme, excellent, imperious royalty said no.
Oh.
But there is a rumor
Of?
having never in his life been asked a personal favor before. His most sovereign enlightened one needed time to fully absorb the gross insult hurled upon him.
The Emperor is angry.
Yeah. The Emperor is angry. So now, the Emperor has issued a decree. Nothing so beautiful as Taj Mahal shall ever be built again.
What kind of decree is that?
He has ordered that the hands of every mason, laborer, and artisan who crafted Taj Mahal be chopped off.
What? Wait. He's gonna chop 20,000 hands off?
40,000.
What? Because they wanted to look at Taj Mahal?
You need not ask why a royal decree is exactly that.
Every worker, every man who built this?
Everyone.
So someone's gonna have to chop 40,000 hands off.
Yeah.
That's a terrible job. Who's gonna have to do that?
Shit.
Oh no.
Shit.
It's us, right?
Shit.
I don't want to do that.
I don't either. Shit.
Well, I think the Emperor is overreacting. 40,000 severed hands. What is the purpose of such punishment?
Nothing so beautiful as Taj Mahal shall ever be built again.
It's almost first light. Omar,
What?
if a flying palanquin did exist, like the one I said, and a person could fly to those little fires in the sky, would you go?
If it pleased his all-powerful reign.
I would go even if it didn't please him. What an invention that would be. I would call it an Allah Aero Platforma Al Agra Babura. Or for short, Aeroplat.
Aeroplat.
Can you imagine? To be as far away as that? Agra would seem no bigger than the flickering up there. We are as small as that, Huma. And further away from that, we are smaller, and further away from that, we don't exist. There's no proof of us, or this place, of Taj Mahal, or Shah Jahan, or Hindustan, or the Razai of candlelight above our heads. Far enough away is another world, with different kings, and different imperial guards. Different gods, even.
Babur, what are you doing? Turn back around. You can't, Babur.
Moayed?
Turn around.
Moayed.
Babur, if anyone sees you,
Moayed.
why are you doing this, man?
I think you should look.
We can look at any other time except now. Why is it so important to risk everything to look at this now? Turn around! Babur, please, oh, come on, man! You are an Imperial Guard!
There is no one watching. Not us, Huma. Trust me. There are no eyes in this land that would waste themselves on us. They are not watching us. They are watching this. This, Humabai. Look. Look and see.
right. So fun to watch. So Rajiv, will you talk to us about your inspiration for writing this play?
Sure. My dad's from India, and I traveled there as a child. When I was like 10, I first went to the Taj Mahal and heard some of the legends and history and myths that are associated with the Taj's construction, and they kind of stuck with me for a long period of my life. And when I started writing plays, I had an idea to write a play about the Taj Mahal, and in doing so, I wrote a really bad, overblown, endless play that was really boring and that I threw away. And then, but I continued to think about it, and I realized that the only two interesting characters in that play that I had written were the two smallest ones, which were the two guards that kind of I had situated on either side of the stage, and who just kind of commented on the events. And I was like, well, let's get rid of everything else and keep those guys. And when that happened, it kind of came into focus for me. And then I went back and saw the Taj Mahal again, and went back to India a few more times doing research. And we actually, Omar and Arian and I got the opportunity to go to India together. And that was a real boon for us in the preparation of the development of this play. And more than any play I think I've ever done, I'd never worked on a play with two actors like I did with Omar and Arian on this. And they had been in the development process from the very beginning. So we were working probably for about 2 years before the Atlantic even put it up for the first time. And through the conversation between the three of us, the play really came into its form.
Awesome. So Arian, as Rajiv mentioned, he wrote this play for you and Omar. So will you tell us how long you guys have known each other, your journey through your amazing friendship, this trio?
I think I met Rajiv. The first time I met Rajiv was actually on the street. So I probably knew him for a decade or so. And he was on the street and he was writing this play called, this is actually a funny story, Huck and Holden, isn't that right? And Huck and Holden was having a bunch of problems, and you could see it was having a bunch of legal problems, as I recall. And I'm on the street, I meet him for the first time. This is maybe 2007 or 2008. And what I was watching was a man that's first major production was about to not happen. And so that's the first time that I met Rajiv. And then a couple years later, I auditioned Holden.
That was The Leopard and the Fox. That's what that was.
That's what it was. The Leopard and the Fox.
Leopard and the
That's
Fox,
what it was. Yeah.
That's
what it was. And then a couple years later, I auditioned for this other play that Rajiv wrote called Bengal Tiger at the Baghdad Zoo. And that was in 2009. And so I've known him, really started working alongside Rajiv since 2009. So more than a decade. That is.
Didn't you? Did you win the Tony?
I
got nominated.
Well,
for the Tony. You didn't
I
win
was
it.
not.
That's right. Well,
you now are witnessing the incredible dynamic, which we will see over the next hour between the three of them.
Rajiv,
take it on the road.
Rajiv for Bengal Tiger won the Pulitzer Prize. Oh wait, no, I don't think he won that.
All right, guys, I'm getting it over to Omar. Omar.
Yes, you're right.
Talk to us about what it feels like to watch the clip of this production 5 years later at this moment that we're in for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting because 5 years ago when we did this, we were living in a very different world. And I mean, 5 months ago, we were living in a different world. So it feels like accelerating and changing in ways that we can barely keep track of. But the thing that strikes me about the play is that watching these clips and revisiting it in my memory, it's becoming more relevant, not less relevant. And it's just Rajiv was really addressing some huge and universal ideas in the play about what it means to try to live in the midst of this sort of overwhelming and oppressive authority, and among other things. And so I think it's just crazy to me how with theater theater is such an ephemeral art form, and a play that can really speak to you, 10 years later, not so much. But I think this is a play that people are going to continue to read and produce for a really long time.
Totally. I mean, Rajiv did that so beautifully with Describe the Night. I feel like just, yeah, timely, timeless, almost like predicting the future in a wild way.
Exactly.
So speaking of revisiting it, you three reunited in 2018 to do the Steppenwolf production with director Amy Morton again. So Rajiv, what was that like for you 3 years after the Atlantic production? And did you make any changes for the Chicago production?
I did not make changes for the Chicago production, but I felt that the Chicago production was uniquely different than the New York one. And I think it had more to do with Amy, Morton, Arian, and Omar, because they came to it, I think it was 2 years or 3 years later, they had sat with it for a while. And I remember I wasn't part of the rehearsal process for that. And I came in, and I first saw it at all on opening night, I think. And I came to see it, and I was really just blown away by what they had found in it without me doing anything. And there was a familiarity between them and the script that was even more enhanced. But there was also what I was really struck by was that they found humor in parts that we had not found humor in before. And it was a much funnier production, I thought. And that was, I think, just because of the time that is given to people, that they can understand a text better and understand all the varied moments within it. And I love the Atlantic production, and I love the Steppenwolf one. And they were very similar. We had the same group of designers, the same director, but there was just, I think, what you saw was just what comes with time, time and reflection.
Awesome. And you, Arian, there's a great story of you guys, there's a Steppenwolf and Amy Morton, and amazing story about how you guys all met, right? Will you tell us that, of Amy and Steppenwolf?
Yeah.
Where you, right?
In 2003, myself, Omar, Amy Morton, Tracy Letts, Reed Birney, Asif Manvi, and my wife, Chrissy Shields, we all did a production of Homebody Cobble at Steppenwolf, and that's where we all met, with Ali Farnakian, and Frank Galati directed, and it was a Tony Kushner play. And so that's the first time that we ever, it's so funny, I just found a picture of myself, Omar, and Asif from 2003, and so that's where the journey of it all happened. And so to come back 15 years later and do Guards there was really special.
So cool. Omar, Rajiv talked a little bit about your trip to India. Can you talk just a little bit about that research trip? I think it was right before Atlantic rehearsals started, right?
It was in January of 2015. I believe, yeah, and that was huge and unprecedented in my experience of working on theater, to actually have the opportunity to take a major research trip like that. To see the Taj Mahal itself, which is, it can't really be overhyped. I mean, it's just an extraordinary thing to see, and not only did we get to see that a few times, which obviously informs this play and the character's experience so deeply, but we also got to explore and visit a lot of other Mughal sites, historical, the palace, which also fed our work a lot, and a number of forts and fortresses and all kinds of things. In addition, it was just such a bonding experience for the three of us, and just laid an incredible foundation on which we could build this play.
Awesome. So we're going to watch this second clip, and I've left it to you, Omar, if you don't mind, to tee us up for
Sure.
What is happening in this awesome scene.
Sure. Well, so as we saw in the first clip, the emperor has decreed that the hands of all the 10,000 laborers and artisans who built the Taj must be cut off. And so this scene opens on a dungeon full of blood and severed hands and gore. And we learn that these two soldiers, Humayun and Babur, have done this horrible task, have cut off all of these hands, and are now tasked with cleaning up the mess that was created. And so I think this scene picks up in the middle of their cleanup of this dungeon. And as they are cleaning up, they start to reflect and discuss on what they've done and what it means. And the conversation starts to venture into some more kind of abstract and philosophical ideas about the meaning of this act of violence that they've committed.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, Claire, if you could take it away, we'll watch this next clip.
Yeah.
It is true, though, what you say. It's got to be a terrible thing. You spent 16 years building Taj Mahal and then to not be able to build anything again. Chop off these hands so that nothing so beautiful as Taj Mahal shall ever be built again. The emperor is a serious man, Bai. Nothing so beautiful ever built again. You know, when you think about it, I guess that means that the most beautiful thing ever made will always be here, right in front of us, in our city. So that at least is good. We don't really have to worry about something more beautiful being built anywhere else. We get the most beautiful thing right here in Agra. Yeah. Do you understand what that means? What means? It means there will never be anything as beautiful built ever again. And if nothing so beautiful is ever built again, it means that beauty itself is actually dying. Right now, already. It's dying. It means that one day it'll be gone altogether, and it's my fault. Come on, Bai. 400 years, 500 years from now, Huma, maybe sooner, there won't be any such thing as beauty. It was executed, and the executioner was me. I killed beauty. I killed beauty. I killed beauty. No, you didn't. You didn't kill beauty. You didn't kill anything or anybody. You just did your job. Whether it's my job or not is besides the point. It is exactly the point. It is the only point. I killed beauty. No, you didn't, okay? Nobody killed beauty. You can't kill beauty. You just said so yourself. You just said nothing more beautiful will ever be built again. That we get the most beautiful thing ever made here in Agra. But the flip side to that is, if nothing more beautiful is ever built again, it means that beauty itself has actually gone extinct. And that's it. It's gone. I guess you're right. Wow. Oh, we killed beauty. No, you didn't kill beauty. I killed beauty. We did this thing together. I chopped. You cauterized. That's semantics. I chopped. You cauterized. End of story. I did the damage. I removed the hands. Okay? I killed beauty. You know what? You don't ever give me credit for anything. I don't ever. Since when? Take your pick. My jokes aren't funny. Only your jokes are funny. I'm not good at cards. Only you're good at cards. My inventions are stupid. Your inventions are interesting. I like the transportable hole. It doesn't work. You can't transport it. And now, I didn't kill beauty. Only you killed beauty. Even though I went fucking blind, burning those bleeding stumps all night. I think I should at least be an accessory to the crime. Okay, Mr. Jeez. It's like I didn't go through this whole ordeal with you tonight. It doesn't feel like you did. Why is that? You don't care. I don't care about what? You don't care that 20,000 men don't have their hands anymore.
supposed to care about that? What is caring going to get me?
It's only the truth!
If we hadn't done our jobs tonight, we'd be hanging by our necks in the royal courtyard, getting our eyes pecked out by the royal crows. So excuse me if I don't wallow in some misbegotten guilt all night. Was it fucked up? Yes, it was. But I don't have to feel terrible about it.
Yeah, you do!
No, I don't!
This is why you don't get to say you killed Beauty! Why only I killed Beauty? Because you don't even care. You don't care about Beauty.
I do too care about Beauty.
Fine. Name one beautiful thing.
Taj Mahal.
Name another. See, you can't
Give me a second. Wine.
Not beautiful, just tasty.
Women.
Doesn't count.
Women don't count.
No.
Women don't count as beautiful.
Different kind of beauty.
You're all over the place.
I like beauty. I have always liked beauty. It matters to me. It has never mattered to you. You're only interested in the rules, and the king, and your father, and being a good soldier.
Birds! Birds are beautiful! Birds flocking, beautiful. Hawks, beautiful. Green parrots, beautiful. Oh, red-breasted jib-jabs, very beautiful. Anything with feathers, really, is beautiful. You see? Ha! You tell me I don't like beauty. I love beauty. I'm a beauty expert. What's wrong? What are you doing?
I got blood on my face.
You're covered in blood. We both
It won't come off. It won't come off! It won't come off! It was terrible what we did!
Hey! Oh! Hey! Steve, look at me! Hey! Look at me! Look at me! Look at me! Shh! Shh! Okay. I'll wash your face. Okay? Okay.
All right. Awesome. Here's Omar's coming back. All right. So Arian, talk to us about what it was like to perform every night next to a basket of severed hands that looked incredibly real and a pool of blood that had to drain throughout the scene.
You know, it's flat, you know, it was intense, you know. Bob Ware at that moment is going through massive amounts of like PTSD from a deed that he just did of like chopping off all these hands, and he was more of a idealist and maybe more of a dreamer, and you know, the blood and all the effects are super realistic, and also just, you know, Omar and I are like best friends, and so watching each other kind of fight on stage, there was a visceralness and a very charged energy that you only get with, you know, just, you know, amazing actors like Omar. And so you didn't have to really think about much. You just had to like be there and kind of like react to everything, and things would happen, you know. It's, you know, Rajiv is so prescient in those ways, but like it's an out damn spot, you know, just watching that scene, because it's the first time I've ever actually even seen that, but there's an out damn spot vibe to it, you know, like there's blood all over his face, and there's going to be blood on his soul and his body probably for the rest of his life. And so I don't know, there was so much, so it was intense. Yeah, it was intense. There's a lot to say about it, but yeah.
Awesome. Omar, I feel like this play is so much, I mean, as Arian was saying, about male friendship, and I find it so incredibly moving about male friendship. We just talk a little bit about, like, you guys have touched on this before, but just what it was like to hang out with two of your best friends, both in 2015 and 2018, and
it was, I mean, I wish every creative process could be the way this one was. It was extraordinary and unique, and the years, decades that I've been an actor. But I think to be able to collaborate with good friends, it creates just a feeling of freedom and safety that allows you to just go so deep into the work. I'm getting a thing that's saying my connection is bad. Can you hear me okay?
You're good. Yeah, okay, don't worry,
good.
You're good.
So it just really lets you dive deep into it. And, you know, as Arian was sort of touching on, Rajiv's play is really like tearing the curtain back on the human soul, you know, and putting these two souls in really extreme and dire circumstances. And so, you know, to go out there every night, and it was physically and emotionally demanding piece. And so to go out there every night and look up and always see Arian's face there, it was this thing we were doing together always. And that, you know, it's what it's all about. Yeah.
Rajiv, will you talk about the changes you made? I know you made a big change in preview, but what happened in rehearsals and previews in terms of the play?
Yeah, I tend to make a lot of changes in previews anyhow. It's an opportunity to kind of like finally see the play in front of an audience and you know, really study the pacing, the perceived engagement of the audience. I know that we were really curious about how people would react to certain moments in the play, particularly the reveal of the second scene, the blood on the stage, the severed hands. But I think one of the most interesting changes came, and I don't remember, Arian, which friend of it was yours, that a woman came to see a preview in the first week.
Anne Mulligan Smith, one of the first female editors of Red Book, came and saw the play, and she she had this big comment. Go, finish the thought. That was.
Well, she came to you first after the play, and what happened was that the play ends. You know, the penultimate scene of the play is that Babur, Humayun, played by Omar, has to chop the hands off of his friend Babur. He has to. It's either that or his friend will die. And he's being kind of put to that by the head of the Imperial Guard, who is also his father. And it's a very, you know, gut-wrenching and terrible moment. And then after that scene ends, we cut to Humayun standing alone on stage, standing guard like he did at the beginning, except he's obviously alone now. And he hears something. And what used to happen is that Babur would show up in rags and with stumps for hands. And they had this exchange where you realize they hadn't seen each other in years. And it's this kind of, I think it was kind of like this, again, like this gut-wrenching scene where we understand that Humayun's had all this guilt built up and he hasn't seen his friend since that night, and he's moved on up the ranks of the Imperial Guard, and now his friend is a beggar. And then Babur leaves and Humayun stands guard and then has this reverie where he remembers a time with Babur, and Babur comes back and he has his hands, and you realize that they're living this memory together. And this friend of Arian's came and said, I don't think you need the first part of that scene. I think it's like you could go right from him standing guard. He thinks he hears something. We think Babur is going to come out, but he doesn't, and then he has this memory. And part of the reason that I ended up thinking that worked was a couple reasons. One is that if it's a two-hander, a two-person play where someone hears someone coming, you know who it is before they step on stage. It's not going to be another character. And so that was like a moment where the audience was ahead of us. And as you know, as a playwright, you kind of want to keep that to a bare minimum. You don't want the audience, especially that close to the end of the play, to be ahead of you. And also, there was no real information that was integral in that scene. And in fact, if anything, it let Humayun's character off the hook. There was a sort of absolution being offered by Babur in that scene, a forgiveness of his friend. And And in doing so, in my opinion, it robbed the play of its tragic arc, you know? And so we excised that scene. At first, you know, people come into the theater all the time in previews, or not even, like, years after a play's been written, and they're like, you don't need this, you don't need that. Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? And so my initial impulse is to be like, shut up, you haven't done the work. And like, I'm not going to listen to these kind of, reductive notes. But Arian told Omar, they both thought about it. Then they came to me. And after I thought about it, I was like, let's try it. And that's, again, what previews are for. It's we can try it the next night. It's just a cut. And you can always put it back in, and we'll see. And so we did it, and we were like, no, we're not missing anything. We don't miss it. And in fact, it really deepened the end of the play. Interestingly, the next two productions, I did one at the Geffen and one at Woolly Mammoth in DC. And I, out of wanting to share my process, I gave the directors of those plays that scene just to look at. And they both really asked strenuously if they could put it back in. They really liked it. And, but I really think it was a cop-out to those scenes. I think it was, the reason they liked it is it satisfies a certain, especially I think American impulse to like have forgiveness, to step away from tragedy. And at the end of the day, as we reckoned with this play, and really with Humayun's story, because the play begins and ends with him standing there alone, it was the right and truthful thing to do to remove that scene.
Awesome. So we got some wonderful questions in the Q&A. So I'm going to ask you guys some of that. The first one that I've chosen is, I'm just going to read it because she wrote so beautifully. I love this play so much. You guys make me cry. As a fellow Middle Eastern actress, would you please let us know what you would like to see when we can return both to the stage and as audience members?
I guess I'll jump in. I would like to see, gosh, what play would I like to see? I mean, right now the world is so chaotic and so maddening and insane. The play that I kind of want to see the most right now is King Lear. It's the play that I'm constantly like, I just want to see what someone will do with, that kind of pressure of the world behind it. That's for me. If we're talking like politically or like philosophically, what do I want to see in the theater? I want to see more plays kind of given a, more plays where three Middle Eastern human beings and can get together and write ideas about what the world looks like that don't fit, a Western perspective. I mean, part of the reason why I feel there was success with Guards of the Taj was that we, especially Rajiv, doubled down on the spiritual nature of what this world is. And so often I feel like we get so scared of that in American culture and Eastern culture that's embedded in the DNA of kind of the art and everything else. And so that's because he has a different value system than, other folks. And so I would like to see more, incredible artists like Rajiv and Omar, given a chance to tell their version of what the world looks like. So I'll give you a micro and a macro. Whoever asked that
Beautifully
question.
Done. Beautifully done. Omar and Rajiv, if you want to respond to that as well.
I want to see a new Rajiv Joseph play. I mean, that's what I want to see.
We'll pay you later.
Yeah.
Send me the script. I'm available. I'm available.
I know he's got a couple in the oven.
You are.
So.
Yeah.
I
want to see anything. I want to be in a room with people watching things on stage. I don't care what it is. I just want to see anything at this point. I'm just, I miss it all so much.
Well said.
Yeah.
So Rajiv, you were in the chat compared to both Beckett and Shakespeare. So put that in your pocket.
Who did you pay? Who did you pay?
I told you guys.
Who did you pay?
He has made a few people to praise him in the Q&A. But actually, there's an interesting comment about that inspiring a play based on minor characters reminded this person of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. And were you inspired at all by that Stoppard play?
I wasn't actually. In fact, when I started writing this, I had actually never read that play. It was like it wasn't on my radar, and so but after I had started writing this, you know, it came up, you know, because it's sort of the same sort of impulse, I guess. But for me, it was more about just I tend to write drafts of plays, and sometimes I throw the entire play away and never come back to it, or oftentimes I'll revamp it from the ground up, excising almost all the characters, putting new ones in, stuff like that. And to me, it's just about kind of the way I work my process. And I really enjoy the destruction of a piece, you know, leading it towards something else. Because if something isn't working for me, there's just no reason to keep it, you know. So that was what it was for me. But I also remember that the turn of phrase that had always come up for me when I heard this legend of these hands being cut off by the Emperor Shah Jahan was this phrase that so that nothing so beautiful shall ever be built again. Like that, for some reason, that phrase stuck in my head, and that was like how the story was told. And when I was writing one night in my journal, I was like going over that phrase, and that's when I came to the idea that Babur would soon have about, if that were to be true, that would mean that beauty is dying, that beauty would one day go extinct. Because if there's nothing to top it, then it's slowly kind of reached its peak, and beauty is going to die. And then to give those words to the character, I was like, oh, he thinks he killed beauty. That's when the play kind of like just dropped into place at that moment. And up until then, it had been just like an idea play, a play about beauty, a play about power, which, you know, when I approach it that way, it's just always very boring and didactic. And when I got to that moment, it started locking in, and the relationship between these two guys kind of locked in.
Awesome. So another question. As a writer and actor of color, I struggle finding spaces to share my work and get feedback from my own community. Do the three of you have networks, clubs, or groups that you could recommend?
As a writer, the most helpful thing in my life so far has not been any kind of official group like that. It's been finding people who I know and trust, and whose artistic minds are like mine, or at least, you know, in the same ballpark, and you know, being able to share work like that, share it within a group of friends. And those groups shift and they change. But I used to have a writing group where there was about 4 or 5 of us, and we would get together once a month, and we would just read our work out loud. And there were like fiction writers, poets, playwrights, and just to have that sort of deadline and to have that sort of like feedback was really helpful to me. And then, of course, when this play, it was unique. You don't always get to work like this, but the collaboration that I had with Omar and Arian was, you know, absolutely integral to the play. The play never would have been written otherwise, or if it would have been written, it would have been written as well. And so we were working on this together because we had this sort of like common goal to put this play on. And you know, from here on, like, I feel very comfortable in sharing my work with these guys. And Omar's actually been, you know, has come to workshops with me in the past and offered his opinion in my process. And so that's been really important to me.
Do you guys, Arian and Omar, because I know you wear many hats, do you want to respond to that, or that question, or we can move on to the next, whichever one?
My answer would be very similar to Rajiv's. I mean, it's for me, it's really, I've been over the years been a part of, you know, in the early 2000s, right, actually a few months before 9/11, a group of Arab American actors started meeting and playwrights to kind of try to create a little bit of a community. And out of that, there was an Arab American comedy festival that grew out of that here in New York. And that was really, that was a really necessary thing at that time, because we were all sort of feeling like individuals floating around. And so to gather like that was great. But over the years, and more recently, it's been, as Rajiv said, it's been more about like-minded friends and colleagues who I trust and work with over time, you know, and creating your own little artistic community to share ideas. I
just want to jump in right off what Omar said. To this writer of color and a director of color, it is oftentimes, and with due respect to all of the companies that are out there, there aren't opportunities for us to have you know, an open door rehearsal process to jump in. And so you really do have to create it yourself, especially in more marginalized groups. I mean, to be quite honest, it's so hard to get work done anywhere in New York City, much less anywhere in the country. And so oftentimes, you know, like they were saying, you know, I started my own theater company, Waterwell, and Waterwell became a nonprofit, and we had to do it ourselves because no one was giving us the time of day. No one was giving us any interest. And a lot of that makes sense. You're young and you have no credits and you don't have any experience, but a lot of that is it's, you know, it does come down to systems. And so hopefully there'll be changes, you know, once COVID is done with regards to all different types of groups that are not represented. But a lot of it is, you know, curiosity and, you know, executive teams to be like, well, I don't know anything about this world. Let's get a team of people that are coming in here. But most of the time, you know, it happens from the individuals themselves. And at first when I was younger, that always bummed me out. It's like, why aren't they giving us fucking money to do this? But you know, now I look at it in a more positive light, because those days we built communities and we built partnerships that have foundation now, where other places take us more seriously because we've done that work. So it's a double-edged sword a little bit, but a lot of the work that you want to create as a writer or an actor or a director of color is, you got, in this day and age, hopefully it changes, but you got to kind of put your work out there. You just got to keep going.
Great, thank you. So we'll take one more question. There's so many great questions. I know we're in a strange virtual moment, but somebody was curious to know what you're all working on, or you could also answer that by what were you working on at the moment that things got shut down? Rajiv, you want to go first? Because
yeah,
I know it's a painful question because we had to hit pause. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a play that had just opened at La Jolla Playhouse. It was a musical called Fly, and it was a musical based on the Peter Pan story. And I've been working on it for a long time, for like 10 years. And we had done it in Dallas Theater Center about 6 years ago, and we did it in La Jolla this past winter. And it opened, I think, on March 6th or 7th, and then 2 days later it closed. And then I was supposed to go to Steppenwolf again to work on a world premiere of a play called King James that I wrote as a commission for Second Stage and for Steppenwolf and Center Theater Group in LA. And it was going to go from Chicago to LA, and of course that was also postponed. So those are the plays that I was in the midst of, and as it pertains to King James, I was also like, at least what I'm telling myself now is that this pandemic has ensured that the play is going to be a little bit better. I have a little more time to work on it, so that'll be good.
Well, I read it and I think it was already amazing. So even better, I get excited.
Thanks.
All right, Omar, what do you have on your docket?
There was a few TV projects coming up, that are indefinitely postponed, and it's been a time an opportunity for a lot of self-reflection, I think, for all of us, and just it's tough for actors. We really rely on others to work, as writers and painters. Composers can somewhat work in a vacuum. I mean, the work can't be fully realized in the case of a playwright, but for us, it's tough because we need to be in a room with other people to do what we do. So you know, we're sort of patiently biding our time.
Yeah. Arian?
I was, yeah, I mean, Waterwell was doing the show called The Courtroom. We were going to perform The Courtroom inside the actual courtroom where the case took place in Chicago. So that is indefinitely postponed. And I will, you know, I'm on this new series for Netflix called Inventing Anna, and we didn't finish shooting that. And the third season of Succession was maybe a month before we started shooting for the third season, and that's been postponed as well. So, you know, spending a lot of time self-reflecting, a lot of times with my kids, you know, last day of school, you know, that kind of vibe.
Amazing. Okay, we're going to do one encore question because there's been a demand. There are lots of things in the chat about a New York revival, which I really like as well. So can you talk about both Arian and Rajiv, if we have just a little bit of time, about your experience with MixFest? So Arian was MixFest at Atlantic. Arian was our co-producer last year for Immigrant MixFest, and then Rajiv was involved a couple years back. We were very lucky to have him. So if you could just talk about those summers that we had together.
Actually directed
What?
I directed a reading for MixFest as well.
Yes, you did. You all three did. I knew that. As I was saying, but can I tell you something? I'll blame my kid. It's because I was on maternity leave. I will throw my child under the bus by saying, because I was like, as I was saying it, I was like, wait, all three of them did a MixFest.
We're involved.
No, I knew that. It's my kid's fault. I truly apologize. I knew you did that, Omar. Sorry. Of course you did. Of course you did. Mona's play. Yeah. So talk to us quickly with a few minutes left about MixFest. Yeah.
It was amazing. I wasn't involved with the Immigrant MixFest. It was amazing just defining what the word immigrant means. That's what I thought was one of the kind of coolest things about it. People think immigrant means, you know, someone coming from some sort of like, you know, brutal regime. It happens, you know, people are escaping places. But immigrants are also from Canada and Scotland and Australia. And I thought it was a really kind of rewarding time to like have a community kind of talk about what it means to be an immigrant and have like different ways of immigrants like talking and describing their experiences with one another. So, you know, kudos to the Atlantic for, you know, having that, you know, for producing that.
Yeah, I'd like to second that. I was part of the Middle Eastern MixFest. I directed a reading of Mona Mansour's play called Falling Down the Stairs. And you know, that you guys were the only theater in town to do a project like that, you know, to get, there's been so much interesting work in the Middle Eastern theater community for years. And so to finally have like a, you know, a showcase where people could hear some of this work was a great thing. And I hope you guys keep it up and keep doing that kind of stuff.
We definitely plan to. No, it's like the highlight of my year. And Rajiv, briefly, we got you roped in. Yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome the way you guys wrote me into, because I said, I think it was Lloyd who he reached out to me and it's like, do you have anything for this? And I was like, no. And then he like reached out again and he's like, do you have anything for this? And I was like, well,
actually, I reached out and you said no. This was the best part. This is why we need co-producers, because we always get these incredible co-producers. And I reached out and Rajiv was like, I'm too busy. And I said, Lloyd, you try. And then you said yes to Lloyd, as it should be. You're like,
yeah, Lloyd has he has information on me, so I have to always say yes to Lloyd. No, it was great. I had this like 4-page beginning of a play that I had never done before, and I brought it out, and that's like the spirit of it. It was like risk-taking, new work, doing things that scared you, and also for me, with the big memory I have of that is just like I met a lot of people I did not know, other playwrights, directors, actors, and I've worked with them, some of them since then. And so it was a community building event, which is like my favorite thing about theater and life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is true. Well, that's a great note to end on. And this was definitely the highlight of my week. I would like to spend time in a Zoom room with the three of you weekly and in person very soon. But I'm so grateful for your time. All three of you.
Annie, before you go.
Yeah.
Remind me which one Omar is and which one Rajiv is. Maybe afterwards.
I know, you are just terrible.
It's great. I'm
Omar
Metwally.
All three of you, handsome, talented, incredible artists, humans. You can take your show on the road with your friendship and hilarity. But I cannot wait till the moment that Atlantic gets to work with all three of you again. And I think Claire's going to pop in with one reminder and thank you, but hopefully we'll see you all next Friday. And thank you, Omar, Arian, and Rajiv so much.
Thank you, Annie.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, I second the thanks.
Thank you.
You guys have been awesome. Annie, thank you for leading us through. Rajiv, Arian, Omar. I was not working at Atlantic when we produced Guards at the Taj, so this to me has been pure joy. These are very strange, challenging, and painful times for many, and the virtual moments that we get to spend with our artists, these fine folk, and with all of you watching are among the most joyous. So if you have been inspired, if you've been moved, if you enjoyed today's Live with Atlantic session, we hope you'll come back every Friday at 4 p.m. And if you're in a position to, we hope that you'll consider making a donation. We've included a little bit of information in the chat. And thank you all. We'll be sharing this link, the recording, next week on our social channels. So if you'd like to rewatch, that'll be available to you. And have a wonderful weekend. Get some time outside.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thanks so much.
Bye.